Welcome to Capes, Cows and Masks, where we uncover the world of soups and science fiction. Firstly, we want to apologize for the delay on this episode. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, unfortunately Dave is under a local lockdown, so we're unable to record in person. We did try to record a show. We figured out a solution, but due to technical difficulties, we weren't able to release it. And we also thought the quality of the show, it just wasn't up to the standards that we wanted to, and we felt that we couldn't do that to you guys listening. But anyway, we're back, up and running, and on this week's show, we've got a whole bunch of news. We take a look at the weird and wonderful trailer for WandaVision. Peacemaker is getting his own series on HBO Max. And Samuel Jackson returns as Nick Fury, and Marvel Studios have once again delayed some of their upcoming movies. We got all this and more. That's all this week on Capes, Cows and Masks. Hey everybody, welcome to Capes, Cows and Masks. I'm Jake.
I'm Dave.
And we're here to uncover the world of superheroes and science fiction. Hey! Due to technical difficulties, we're very sorry guys, we weren't able to put out the previous show that was meant to come out. We did record one, had everything planned, but due to this pesky virus that's going on, we've had to do this remotely. So Dave's in the lovely Ogre's Cantina in Batu, in Galaxy's Edge.
The signal last week just was too bad from all those galaxies away.
Exactly. You were drinking too much of that blue milk.
Yeah.
And I'm here in Chepstow. So,
well, you've got like what was the Severn Bridge or the Prince Charles Bridge, whatever it's called, near you. And I've got a light speed bridge near me.
That bridge is closed half the time. So yeah, guys, that's why you might see a difference in quality due to us not being in the same room and we're recording this different way. So we're sorry about that, but we'll try our best.
Yeah.
But as we like to start off the show, Dave you're sort of back in lockdown. Even though I'm not officially in lockdown, I'm treating it as lockdown. So. Trying to keep myself occupied and watch a lot of stuff.
Is it like a map from where people have parodied like Dad's Army where all the arrows are around like Cardiff?
Yes.
That's like where you're also like in your county where just everyone around you is locked down. So by default, you are locked down.
Technically, because I can't go into any of the areas. So yeah. But I can cross the bridge when it's open.
You can go through if you want to go far away, but not too close.
Yeah. Stay away.
Yeah.
But what have you been watching, man? What have you been doing?
Like I said, I've just been trying to dip my toe into different TV series. I recently finished up a few film watch-throughs. So it's been kind of testing out what I want to be watching next. Obviously, with lockdown, I've tried to keep it a bit lighter as well. So sometimes when you do look at your more sort of darker films or series, I'm looking at those a bit more now and being like, not for me today. So I've been watching like Close Enough, which is the semi-new Netflix series. I think it's been out in America a bit longer on Hulu. But I think it went through a bit of development hell in terms of finding a place for it to go. But yeah, I've been really loving that. If anybody's into their like adult animation, which is now a big thing because of Rick and Morty and pretty much 25% of Netflix at the moment, then it is a really great animated series. Especially like it aims towards that kind of like late 20s going into your 30s, people who are like becoming parents. That it's from the people who made Regular Show, but it's then again like them doing more like adult stuff so they can have F-bombs, etc. And yeah, it's just madness, and yeah, I love it. It's fun. And yeah, apart from that, like I said, it's just watching different movies which I've been recommended for a long time, and trying different other series. Like I said, Amazon, I've been watching The Boys, and I tried out Tales from the Loop the other day, which was an interesting one, but not sure if I'll stick to that one. But I hate I don't know if you're the same. I hate starting a series, not being able to carry on with it. I started watching Cursed weeks ago, that Netflix thing. I was like, I'm not into this. I don't like this. And I was like, it was like episode 5 or something, and it was there for ages on my continue watching. I was like, I need to finish it for the completionist in me, but I just can't bring myself to watch the rest of it.
No, I'm totally the same as you. I hate not finishing at least a season of something.
Yeah. That's I can get away with okay, I'm not returned for season 2 kind of thing, but
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I also think your first season is so important. It really has to sort of stand out to bring people in. And when people say, "Oh, the first season's kind of slow, but it gets better afterwards," I'm like, well, I need a bit more than that to continue watching a show. And even if it's the first season, towards the end, it gets really good. I've wasted all this time just to get to 2 good episodes or something like that.
I had that exact thing with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Everyone oh, it gets better. And I watched it, and sure enough, the end of it, I was like, oh yeah, that was really good. But then I watched the start of season 2. I was like, oh, I kind of feel like I've gone backwards now to the beginning of season 1. So it's it is that whole oh, it gets good later on is a big thing for me, because I'm like, well, like you said, if it doesn't capture me straight away, then they're not doing their job.
Yeah, exactly. And, if you look at some of the best shows around, they normally have a good, strong first season.
Yeah,
because,
exactly.
That's how you get people hooked. I mean, look, Mandalorian's a perfect example of just this one relatively short season as well. The runtime of the episodes and the amount of episodes itself, and it still caught fire. So.
Yeah, and I think it's fair enough if you're saying episode 4 or 5 where it starts to get good. That's a reasonable amount of time. But like I said, to get to an end of a season or something, that's a bit much.
Yeah. I haven't really been watching that much TV apart from The Boys. That shit just keeps on getting more intense each episode. Homeland is losing it even more. Stormfront's just. Yeah, I don't want to spoil it for people, but it's getting weird.
Yeah.
And after watching the end of episode 6, I'm watching it with my girlfriend, and I was just I don't know how they're going to wrap all this up in 2 episodes.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to have a sort of cliffhanger.
Yeah, sort of the end of season 1, which I'm all for. I'm all for because then if that will attract more attention to it, people will be craving for the answers, and then they can. It's already confirmed for a season 3, but maybe they can go beyond to 4 or 5 seasons.
Well, I think it is 3 and 4. I think have been.
Have they confirmed the 4th one?
Yeah, I think greenlit 3 and 4. I'm pretty sure.
Nice. More of The Boys, please.
Yes.
And like you, I've just been revisiting some old movies, man. I revisited the Matrix trilogy.
Nice.
I fucking love those films, man. The first one is the first one. What can else we say about the first one? It's magnificent in so many ways, so impactful in this time. And I'm watching this movie now in 2020. I'm like, God, man, if at least 3/4 of all the action flicks now are not based off the Matrix and what the Wachowskis were doing there, I don't know what is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even the storytelling as well. The big themes that they're going in there, and having revisited this trilogy, especially looking at Reloaded and Revolutions. Watching them one after the other, pretty much, you get the full picture, and you get the story they were trying to tell. And the sequels or not, especially the third one, it gets a lot of criticism, gets a lot talked about. You got to give credit to the Wachowskis that they followed through on their vision, and I don't think they actually missed a beat in terms of the story they were trying to tell. And I don't know, I just had a new look on the sequels. I mean, I've always sort of enjoyed the second one. But I enjoyed it even more this time. And the third one, I was like, you know what? It's not that bad. It's kind of like an all-out war film. It's not as heavy on the themes as the previous 2, but I kind of feel as if everything that was already set up in those 2 films. It just needed to come to a conclusion. So, yeah, I know. I have a newfound respect for the whole trilogy in general. Very thoroughly enjoyed rewatching it. Yeah. So I urge people to give it another chance if they haven't, seen that one in a while.
Yeah, especially because a lot of people are doing their typical Lord of the Rings watch-throughs, Marvel, Star Wars, but yeah, like you said, Matrix is especially because there is a movie, like a fourth one coming out as well. So it's a good chance to watch through them. And it's almost a bit like Star Wars in the way that you look at the critical consensus of a lot of them, then they will say, oh, too CGI heavy, too much, visual effects. And, that's a lot of the stuff that was thrown at, George Lucas when he was making the Star Wars prequels. But like you said, you got to think then, well, would people have been doing stuff that they are in action now if it wasn't for some of those visual enhancements that they did back then?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and the thing is with the too many visual effects, you can't use that as a critique these days because most of the films we watch is all visual effects pretty much. So
yeah,
it's you can't really say that it's bad because it's got too many.
Yeah.
So then what? Most of the films these days are bad.
Yeah, they're just more seamless today. You just can't notice it as much.
Yeah, exactly. And also I just think they were ahead of the time. I don't know if the audiences at the time of release, which was 2003, I believe they came in they were released 6 months apart from each other.
Yeah.
Or something like that. I just don't think they were maybe ready for it. I think they had this certain, as Star Wars fans as well have, and any sort of really fandom have expectations after seeing the first one. Thinking, oh, it's going to go this way, it's going to go that way. Neo's going to be like this Superman sort of guy. And, the Wachowskis, I actually thought very bold in taking it the direction they did. While in the first one, pretty much says that humans and machines are totally different. But then in the sequels, you start to see that line becomes a lot more blurred.
And if you want a CGI mess from the Wachowskis, then it's Jupiter Ascending.
Jupiter Ascending. Speed Racer as well.
That does have its fans, though. So
it has quite a cult following. But some of the visual effects in that, I wouldn't say they're bad. It's just interesting choices.
Kind of like reminds me of Spy Kids, kind of.
Yeah, had that sort of flavor. It's almost like they were trying to make like an anime style, but live action.
Yeah,
which I thought they already kind of did with The Matrix. Again, that's rewatching these. I was like, man, this is an anime. This is essentially an anime just with real people.
Yeah.
But yeah, and The Irishman. Finally watched The Irishman.
Mm-hmm.
All 3.5 hours of my life watching that. Yeah, man.
Did you have a break? You were at home.
No, I went straight through. I thought I was going to have to at some point be like, right, let's stop this and take a break and do something else. But no, I was fully engrossed in everything that was going on, and I was floored by the acting. I mean, obviously the talent in there, the names alone, it's going to be great. But actually seeing it, I was just like, man, this is just too good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You want to show that to a class of actors, aspiring actors, and be like, just look at these guys at the masses of the craft.
It's like I didn't like when those articles out there, like, if you do want to split up The Irishman, here's the way to do it. And I'm like, no. It's like, there probably is a way to do it, and there probably are people out there who will want to do it that way. But people have to get used to long films and long content.
Yeah, I mean, or don't watch it.
Yeah,
if it's too long for you, just simple like that. I mean, it wasn't intended to be made like a series. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
So, anyway, man, let's get into the news because we got some more news. A lot's been happening in the superhero world, especially.
They're dishing out those trailers, dishing out those casting announcements.
Yeah, for films we might not even know we'll ever see. As everything keeps on getting delayed. But we'll get into that. Let's start off with some really positive news for something that we're definitely going to be seeing this year.
Yes.
And that is WandaVision. We got the trailer for the new Disney Plus series from the MCU, which will, funnily enough, be the first project Phase 4 of Marvel now.
Yeah.
Because with all the delays.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Yeah, because it was meant to be Black Widow, but now all the delays, we've got WandaVision sort of kicking us off into Phase 4, which will be interesting.
I liked how Disney sort of spun that, and they were just like, WandaVision is actually the official start of the Phase 4. It's like, it's like, the best way to go into the story. I was like, it's like nice little spin there, Disney. But I'm sure they're not lying, but it is just funny.
No, I mean, I trust the people at Marvel. I trust the people. I obviously trust Kevin Feige. So I think they're smart enough to maybe jig things about that they could make it work. But we'll see. But we're gonna be talking about the trailer now. The trailer. Man, what a bundle of weird this was, and I fucking love it. It looks fucking great. Like, out of all the Marvel shows that they've announced coming to Disney Plus, I've most anticipated for WandaVision, mainly because from the get-go, when they said it's going to be like a sitcom type of show, but going through different areas of sitcom, and I was like, okay, that's going to be weird as hell. And then I was thinking, how are they going to sort of do it? Because Vision's dead, and how is this all going to play out? And then everyone was saying, it might be inspired by House of M, which looks like it's definitely going to be, because there's Easter eggs to that, and as well as Tom King's maxi series, The Vision, where he has two android, builds a family and stuff like that. Highly recommend anyone to watch that. So I was like, okay, this is going to be weird. It seems like the most different type of thing that Marvel have maybe tried to do in terms of like really out there, maybe apart from like Guardians.
Yeah.
So the trailer delivered, man, in all those aspects, starting off in like the black and white and the old school TV in the 50s to then go into like the 70s type of sitcom, seeing the original costumes of Scarlet Witch and Vision in like that Halloween party. And then, Vision sort of trying to figure out if he is real, if he's dead, because, that conversation he has with the lady in the car. I think all of it, it's all a reality that Wanda is creating.
Yeah. Well, that's the great thing. Like you said, the synopsis of the series, there's, okay, this sounds weird that it's this ode to different sitcoms and going through the ages, but they've also sold it as, going through the different ages of sitcoms as Wanda loses her mind. And you're like, oh, crap, so it does make it, one, support that whole alternate reality kind of thing. But yeah, like the aspect of her losing her mind is obviously something that people have wanted for a long time, because that's a big part of her in the comics, etc. And we've already been teased as to that in the films. So, yeah, that's...
Yeah, throughout the films, pretty much since her introduction in Age of Ultron, she's actually been incredibly, she's very powerful.
Oh yeah, she could have taken down Thanos. Like she was going to do it.
Yeah, she was nearly there. She was nearly there. Before whatever that stuff he threw at her.
Rained fire.
Yes. So it's hinted at through the movies how powerful she can actually be, and she is powerful enough to change the universe in a way, change reality. So, and I think they're going to take they're not going to do exactly as they did in the comics, because they're not there yet. And in the comics, in House of M, she sort of loses her two twins, which we saw in the trailer.
Yeah.
She sort of has a miscarriage, which drives her crazy, and she shouts, "No more mutants!"
Yeah.
And then all the mutants, apart from like the obvious ones,
the main ones,
the main ones are just all gone. It's like a reset for Marvel in a way in terms of mutants. Now, the MCU can't do that because they haven't got any new mutants. But I think they could find a way to flip it on its head, and maybe her tampering with reality could maybe be the cause of mutants to enter the MCU.
Yeah, or just open up the multiverse. So because she's in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, it could be that people have predicted she could be somewhat of a villain for that. If there's suddenly all these portals open in which people can go in and out of or something. Or like you said, she could change reality and things could enter or come into the world. I still think my problem with that is that, to me, I think you still need that legacy of the X-Men, because I think the problem with going, oh, mutants now exist, is how do you sell Professor X? How do you sell Beast or Cyclops, as people who are just like, oh, I've been doing this 2 weeks. It's like, no, you need that, especially Magneto and X, you wouldn't have that history there. So... But potentially, like I said, if she was opening multiverses, maybe that's where there's a multiverse where the X-Men do exist and they've had that history and they start to sort of trickle through into our world or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Especially, like you said, especially with characters like Magneto and Professor X.
Yeah.
I don't want to turn this into maybe an X-Men discussion, but another point a lot of people have made out of is that how do you do Magneto's origin now?
Exactly, yeah.
Because if we're in because the end of Endgame, we're in 2023. So that's 80 years? No. Yeah, it's 70 years after the war or 80 years after the war. Yeah. And he's meant to be a Holocaust survivor. So you're going to have Magneto be what? An 80, 90-year-old man?
Yeah, exactly. That's true.
I don't know how that works, but So, I mean, unless you could say maybe his mutation, they don't age the same. I don't know.
Yeah. I was thinking about this actually with Captain Marvel, and this does link into how they make things plausible. Because I was like, that was quite a clever film in that they were like, you know what, we want to introduce all of these characters, so including Monica Rambeau, for example, who is going to be in this series. So they've done a clever thing of going, well, if we're going to do period pieces, we'll do it in a way that means that then by the time we do get to the present, they're at the age we want them to be. So another classic example, Ant-Man, they're just like, oh, too bad, like, his daughter's not, like, a bit older. It's like, oh, we've got this 5-year time jump. Great. We've now got a young Avenger in the making kind of thing. So, and it's the same. They could do the same with that. They could have some sort of 90s X-Men universe or something in which they've sort of come from there or something like that, especially if they want to please those 90s X-Men cartoon fans.
Yeah,
the multiverse just opens and you just hear
Doctor Strange coming in. Oh, what have we done?
Yeah. Why do I hear a guitar riff?
Wait, what year is this? No, but it's funny because you mentioned the Doctor Strange thing. Like I've thought for a while now that by the end of this season, this series, WandaVision, she will become the Scarlet Witch. Because up until this point, she hasn't been called the Scarlet Witch. She's always just been Wanda Maximoff. So this could be the moment where she becomes the Scarlet Witch, and then I think she could possibly be the villain in Doctor Strange, and Doctor Strange has got to sort of sort out the mess that she's making. So in a way. I think in a way this does make a good start for the MCU in terms of Phase 4, because I'm going to watch Black Widow, but I didn't think that really would have kicked off what we're going to be in for. The Eternals, that could also have a possibility, but that seems so like distant. That seems like it's over here doing its own sort of thing over a space of 5,000, 10,000 years, whatever they said. So I do believe WandaVision's actually could be a very good kickoff to Phase 4.
Yeah.
And how we proceed from here. So yeah, it's interesting. Can't wait, man.
No, definitely.
Can't wait.
Like, I think like you said, my favorite characters have been Vision and Wanda, or some of my favorite characters. So that's where I'm really excited for it, because I think if you just sold it as like, oh, the Scarlet Witch show, it's kind of like the Loki one. I'm just not as excited for it because you don't get that flavor of what's going to be happening dramatically. So the fact that you've already got like a relationship and these characters that got such a history in the comics, and like you said, that there's children involved, there's death involved, there's madness involved. You're already like, oh, WandaVision, like that sells that, as well as being like a clever pun to the television stuff. But yeah, I think. And like you said earlier, I think it's great that the MCU is so theatrical and like theme parky in their movies that they can use this chance to be a bit more like, let's go into the deeper themes, let's go into the more psychological elements that we can't go into in the movies, because we've now got 8 to 10 episodes that we can tell that through. And I think it is interesting we're getting this before Falcon and Winter Soldier, because originally that was going to be before it. And a lot of people, I think, have speculated whether that has anything to do with the end of Black Widow, or there's something in that film, like an end credit scene that links to that, which is why they're happier for Wanda and Vision to now be first. So I'm interested in that as well. But
that makes sense. It makes sense if Black Widow was to tie into that show.
Yeah. So I think I'm more excited. I was more excited for WandaVision, so I am happier we're getting it sort of first. But yeah, I think it'd be interesting then to see how, like you said, it shapes the series going forward as well, whether they change up things like Falcon Winter Soldier, whether now they're still doing filming, whether they sort of adapt it a bit more for how it fits in the MCU.
Yeah, like we said at top, I trust the people at Marvel and Kevin Feige, so they're smart people. They've proven they know what they're doing up until now, so
and people,
I have no issues.
And people are definitely into it, because this trailer did like 52,000 views, which is actually like above like Infinity War's like initial viewership. I was like, that's impressive.
Yeah, it's good. And, half the people were like, oh my God, I can't wait for the series. And the other half are like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, what is going on?
So, and I think that will attract people initially, just because the sheer madness of it. They're just going to be intrigued. People are like, what is this? Like,
yeah.
So yeah, we're going to be super excited to see that. But something we won't be seeing for a while is the Marvel movies. So we've got
Speaking of
some
Black
more.
Widow,
Yes, more delays. The ever delaying cinema life. We've had, unlike before, Marvel shifted their whole release. Every movie they had planned. This time they're only shifting 3 of them. Black Widow, Eternals, and Shang-Chi all get new release dates, all pushed to next year. Well, 2 of them were already pushed to next year, but later down the year. Let me see if I've got the... Yep, so Black Widow, which was supposed to be coming out this November, is now being released May 2021. We got Eternals, that was meant to come out in February 2021, coming out in November 2021. And then Shang-Chi, which was meant to come out in February 2021, has now got a May date in 2021. So, interesting that they've moved Black Widow and Shang-Chi so close together.
yeah, I suppose it does stick to the whole summer formula of like when you had Spider-Man, Far From Home, and like Avengers. So that kind of makes sense, I suppose, from that point of view. And they do seem like both summer movies, but I think I briefly said to you before, wasn't it? And you might have seen me on Twitter, like sort of complaining to people about this, but when they kind of go, "Oh, well, the Eternals has been moved all the way. Why would you do that? Shang-Chi is still being made and all this stuff." I'm like, we gotta get used to this idea of like we're not just being like, "Oh, move this to there." Move, it has to make sense where it goes. Like, No Time to Die, for example. Like, I don't think for a minute that they went on, let's just plonk it in November because we hope the pandemic will be done by November. Like, November is like famously been a month in which James Bond has been released, so
Yeah, which is, I actually found it weird that they were releasing this one in April.
exactly. So if they wanted to delay it again, they might even then say, do we want to go back to April? Because that maybe wasn't an actual good fit for James Bond. So yeah, I think it's the same with this. I'm perfectly happy with the Eternals being at Christmas because it does seem, or November, close to winter, because it does seem like we've been teased about Black Widow for so long that we need to see that first, obviously. But the fact that we've seen nothing of like Eternals, barely anything, like it's like fine to be that far away because they can get away with that fact that people aren't like, oh, we've seen the trailer, we want it now, kind of thing. Because even with Shang-Chi, there have been like a bit of like set photos and stuff like that. So
yeah, they've gone back into production now because Australia got a handle on things pretty well. So that's happening down there. So yeah, they're back into production.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the dates have worked out well for that, and they might even do it going forward. Like I said, they might have delayed Multiverse of Madness until a certain date, but I wouldn't be surprised going forward if they still start moving things again to to not go, well, actually, does that make sense there? And that kind of thing.
Yeah, because they moved. Doctor Strange is not coming out till like 2022.
Yeah, and it's like
or 2023 or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's 2022, but it's like March, and I'm like, that seems like a sort of May release to me. That should be like your summer blockbuster.
Actually, if anything, I would even say like a winter release. The previous Doctor Strange was a winter release.
Yeah.
So, and also the fact that you're waiting that long between, because if WandaVision is meant to tie into Multiverse of Madness, that's a long wait.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I think
to find out, what happens next.
I think that's where it moved from. I think it originally was going to be winter 2021, and then it moved to that March. But
yeah.
But yeah, whether they then, like you said, put it like winter 2022 could happen. But
yeah, we'll see.
But
I think it's it's smart. But the only issue I have is that this should have been done at the beginning of this whole mess. Do you know what I mean? Like that first time they postponed it, they should have just gone a whole year next year. So Black Widow's now coming out May 2021.
Yeah,
done. And then all of us would be like, okay, it's a bummer, but at least I've got that to look forward to.
Yeah.
And that you don't have this constant, is it going to move? Is it not going to move? What's happening with Wonder Woman, the poor box office of Tenet. Well, maybe not poor box office, but not as much as they maybe expected.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is just the right thing to do, and people just need to, just deal with it, really.
Yeah. Because it could still change, you never know. But I feel that everyone's feeling is that it is like spring 2021 seems like the safe, anybody, whether you're a scientist or just average Joe, you kind of think like by the way,
Well, we hope. We hope.
the way things are played out this year, that seems to be what makes sense for it to be like a safe, bet to like by that time.
I think regardless, I think they will bite the bullet and just release them anyway.
Yeah.
Even if it's not maybe 100% safe, and it's all back to sort of where we were, I still think they'll be like, we just got to release it now, especially Black Widow.
Yeah, well, that's why I was surprised in a way, because I thought that they might go down the premium access route if they didn't do like a sort of like January release or something like that, or February. I thought they would do a full sort of, okay, we'll try it, we just need to release it now. So in a way, it is surprising that it is that far away, because, Mulan and stuff didn't get away with sort of, because they were so far into their advertising campaigns, they didn't have that luxury of being able to be like, oh, well, wait till next year, because it was so close to coming out. But yeah, Black Widow just got away with just by the skin of his teeth, I think, to be honest, because it was like just that sweet spot where it was like a few weeks away. They hadn't showed too much, but it is still quite surprising. I will be interested to see if there is a drop in interest because of, like you said, you were like, I wasn't as interested in that film already anyway, just because it was kind of like it doesn't add to the story as much maybe. So I'll be interested to see if there is any effects to that going forward in terms of like whether people are like, feel like it's kind of.
Yeah, because, she dead.
Yeah.
She dead. You know who's not dead, though, and still kicking it? Nick Fury.
Yeah.
And Samuel Jackson, he's still working to this day. What a guy this guy is. But Samuel Jackson is back as Nick Fury. He is reported to be back as Nick Fury in a new Marvel series for Disney+. So a lot of people were sort of saying wrongly that it's a Nick Fury series. That is not confirmed, people. It's not confirmed if it is about him. It could be just about him. We don't know. I think it would be kind of cool if it was, or he could just maybe add some more star power to an established series. Who knows? But what are your thoughts on this, man? Sammy J is coming back.
Yeah, I just immediately had the image. I'm almost more interested in like the Samuel Jackson asking for a Nick Fury series rather than the Nick Fury series itself. I just have this image of him going into the Disney office, be like, "Motherfucker, give me a series," like, just like he's just like watching the success of The Mandalorian. He's just like on the phone to like Kevin Feige, just like, "Where the hell am my series at?
Yeah,
what's going on here?" English.
Just like when he asked George Lucas, "I want a purple lightsaber."
Exactly that. He is infamous for that kind of stuff. So he's just like, Disney Plus, do you speak it? He's just that. So yeah, but again, that's what I hope it brings to the series. That's the immediate effect I had. Like you said, I think it would maybe be more of a Agents of S.W.O.R.D. or whatever the new team is going to be, etc. Because they've teased that from WandaVision, etc. So whether
it could possibly as well, people have thrown out it could be like a Agents of S.W.O.R.D. series.
Yeah,
because by the end of Far From Home in the post-credit scene, we see Nick Fury in the spaceship with all the Skrulls.
Yeah.
And that's basically the formation of S.W.O.R.D., which is like the space version of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, exactly. So like that's why I think that could easily be a possibility. They could do a sort of secret invasion type series. They might not call it that, but it would be something leading up to that storyline.
Yeah, makes sense.
But also, yeah, so I think all of that would make sense. But like I said, the immediate reaction that I had is just that so even though that they might be more like team sort of shows, or they might be a part of a bigger storyline, I am just excited to see Sam Jackson have fun as Nick Fury, because I don't feel we've really got a chance to fully see that yet. I think in Captain Marvel and Avengers maybe, but I think he took quite a backseat in, Age of Ultron, especially because, like Black Widow, he died, or supposedly. Not so much maybe like Black Widow. We'd have to see the new film to see whether. But yeah, the fact that he and it's even surprising. I was actually thinking about it in Endgame at the end. I was like, it's surprising he wasn't in the end battle. Like he was at the funeral of Tony Stark, but I was surprised he wasn't actually at the like end fight kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, what's he gonna do?
Exactly,
really?
He's just there with a pistol or something. He could show up with another helicarrier, maybe.
I mean, Hawkeye's got a bow and arrow, so
yeah. There's only room for one person who's got like a really easy to defeat weapon.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that's what I'd like to see, is just Sam Jackson having fun as the character, getting into like, sort of good storylines, not just be, like you said, a kind of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. thing, or like, oh, this week he, infiltrates a boat, and, oh, this week, like I said, I want it to be a big storyline that's worthy of the character of Nick Fury as well, because he does have some great storylines and moments, etc., in the comics as well.
Absolutely. Like, when I heard this news, I was really kind of hoping that they would do something in the vein of like the Winter Soldier, will make it like a very political type of thriller, espionage type of series.
Yeah.
And I think because I should have researched this, but I don't believe Samuel Jackson has ever done TV, has he?
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking as well. He might have done maybe cameos, or maybe. Well, he was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. actually for like all of 2 seconds.
Yeah, you could count that, but that doesn't really count.
No,
so I think
he's not in a starring role or anything. No.
Yeah, if he's going to be a predominant role in whatever series this is, whether it's about him or another character, I think it will be really interesting because he'll have a lot more screen time than he's had in the movies. So I think he'll have, he'll be able to experiment more and try different styles. Maybe we could look a bit deeper under Nick Fury and stuff like that. So, and TV's got the room to do that. So yeah, I'm excited for it, man. Wherever where it's his own show or he pops up in another show, and I also think it's plays more. They're being serious, Marvel, when they say you've got to watch these TV shows as much as the movies for the whole story to make sense. And I think by adding Nick Fury into that really cements that, because he sort of was the glue, especially in Phase 1. So to bring him back into the TV, that sort of furthers the glue between the movies and the TV world.
Yeah.
And it'll give people be like, oh, I've got to watch it because this guy's in it,
Yeah. It could almost be a bit like what they were doing with the one-shots originally, that could act as a kind of like, like, oh, people didn't like the Mandarin, let's make this one shot to make up for that. They could kind of do the same thing with this series. It could kind of be like, if people didn't like the whole, like, his eye getting, like, scratched out or whatever, they could have something, that maybe retcons that slightly as well, so...
Yeah, I mean, and there's plenty of other shows I think he could pop up in. Like, I think he could easily pop up in She-Hulk or Miss Marvel or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. And
so Hawkeye as well.
Yeah,
I'd see that makes sense if he showed up there.
And like you said, if they want Sword to be a big thing going forward, which I assume they would, because again they're kind of lacking that sort of unit team kind of thing now that they've had. Because I think it's been surprising actually how long they've gone with S.H.I.E.L.D. is gone, kind of thing. Everyone kind of expected some form of S.H.I.E.L.D. to rise back up after a while, but I think now at this stage, especially after the snap, you would think that the world would be like, can we please have something like this back?
Yes, something to protect us from aliens.
Yeah,
please.
So a space one would be pretty cool.
Yeah, look forward to that. We'll see when that's. I think that'll be quite far away off, but we'll see what happens there. We'll go into some a bit sadder news, and that is the unfortunate cancellation of The Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance from Netflix.
My heart.
I know. Dave, I'm going to let you sort of go ahead and start this one up, because I haven't seen the show. I haven't even really seen the original movie and stuff. So I've got no personal attachment to this franchise, but I know you sort of do, and I know a lot of people do. So what are your thoughts on the cancellation and stuff and all this news?
I think it is very unfortunate, but like I said, at the same time, it wasn't a surprise. I think a lot of people saw it come in, because even though Netflix isn't the type to be like, like a movie, if it opens a big box office weekend, they'll obviously want to grab people with headlines, be like, oh, we're making a sequel, and then people are like, oh, and let's go see this film because they know the sequel's coming out. So whereas Netflix maybe doesn't do that as much with its series, they have tended to be with Stranger Things and Umbrella Academy. So when The Dark Crystal came out, you could kind of tell, even just by because they kind of made the teasers and stuff for it early on, and people were getting excited, but then there was like massive gaps between the teasers, and you kind of thought, okay, well, it's like puppetry. I'm assuming it's taken quite a while, but when, like I said, like maybe something like Fantastic Four, like that Josh Trank movie, you can kind of just get a feel of like, something doesn't feel right here. It kind of feels like you're not fully supporting this, this project kind of thing. So it always felt a bit like that with Netflix to me as well. It didn't seem like they quite got on board with it, and they did advertise it on TV a bit, but I don't think they really made a case for why people should watch it, and why people, because they had the original film on there as well. Like, they could have made the case for, like, here's the original film, watch the original film, get excited for the series. They did, they were aiming it at the hard, the audience which grew up with this and wanted it, but I don't think anybody could have ever said that was a massive audience. Like, you can there's definitely a history in film and TV production of going, oh, this thing has now gained a cult following, let's make a thing for that cult following, and that can have success. But at the end of the day, it's still a cult following because it's still not a mass appeal thing. So I think they should have done more to appeal it to a bigger audience. And that's why, like I said, when it came out and it kind of just went away from the trending within like a week, you didn't hear any announcements. A lot of the trades, etc., were sort of like saying about, ooh, season 2, what this could mean. But just nothing was coming from that, So even though like the trades were kind of poking them for answers, they weren't biting, and there was nothing coming from any of the creators and anybody. And in fact, the only thing that really popped up, and we were talking about Doctor Strange earlier, was the Labyrinth sequel that they're working on, and that has what's his name, the director of Doctor Strange,
Scott Derrickson.
Yeah, so he's going to be working on the Labyrinth film.
Good choice.
Yeah, so that and I don't think that's even connected to Netflix. So like I said, it wasn't a surprise, but I think it is a shame for me. The biggest shame is just that, like, one, it is sticking to the typical Netflix trope, is that they're all for original content, but then they don't really support it that much. And I had the same thing when they cancelled American Vandal, completely different type of series, like a comedy mockumentary crime series, but it was like nothing I've seen before on television. It was so inventive, so good. And there's the same with this series. It was like puppetry on television again. Like, I don't know if you remember, like, I didn't like watch this because it was a bit goofy, but like on ITV, they used to have like a troll kind of like puppet series on, like, after you come home from school. And it was like going back to those sort of days where you're like, oh my God, remember when you turn on kids' television and there would be puppets on TV? And like I said, that's why I would recommend you to watch it, just because the sheer amount of detail and passion and work that's gone into this series. That's the biggest shame, is just the fact that it probably, what you can see why they cancelled it as well, because the expense, because you watch that series and you're like, that was damn expensive. But that's why, again, I just hope it turns into something in the future. I hope that like that the Henson Company is still its own entity, so they can still take it elsewhere. They can still make another film if they wanted to. They've still got comics and books coming out about it. But I think it was the biggest thing for me, is that it was not great on the negative side of Netflix thing, and it wasn't a great thing on the aspect of, like, it's down there with 2D animation, isn't it? It's like puppetry, 2D animation, stop motion animation. It's like, we want these things to thrive, but people just aren't buying into it, unfortunately. That's why I just want them, wish they would, but yeah, it's sad when things like this happen.
Yeah, it is sad. I mean, I haven't watched the show, but gathering from the trailers, again, I haven't watched the original stuff, but I'm aware of it, being part of my childhood. Maybe I haven't sat down and watched it, but I've passed it in, other people watching it, and I'm aware of, all the skill that goes into puppetry. I mean, I'm a huge practical guy, whenever you, especially in like sci-fi and fantasy, if you can make something that you can actually touch, it just gives it that more believability.
Yeah, exactly.
So the original Star Wars, the Lord of the Ring films, how it was all done so practically. I think the problem though with this is that, yes, this is a cult following, and yes, you need to, but those people are already on board no matter what you release.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
The whole point is that you need to sort of bring new people in.
Yeah.
Like we sort of had that with the sequel trilogy of Star Wars, but it still brought a whole new generation of fans in and found new things to love about the franchise. But if you're just going to target that very niche audience, of course you're not going to, you can't survive on just the fans. You have to reach out to the average Joe to get them hooked into this series.
Yeah. Well, it's like, even watching the series, you do watch it at points like, they could have made changes to appeal to a bigger audience, because there are so many things that are like, oh, only a certain type of person would enjoy this kind of storyline, or like seeing the things that they see, because Because let's face it, there's a lot of people out there who also just think puppets are creepy and that kind of things. But
Yes,
and
yeah.
this is not the best example to be like, well, this will change your mind. Watching like a horrific bird monster, like consume creatures, etc. But they did lay too heavily, like you said, on the nostalgia, because the Skeksis, which are those like big bird-like creatures, they're played by Simon Pegg, Jason Isaacs, all these big actors, Mark Hamill. Brilliant voice work from Mark Hamill again.
As always.
But, you do kind of watch it thinking like, are you spending too much time on these, because what made them so great in the original film is that, they're kind of like, you love them, but you obviously didn't get too much of them. And while the series doesn't like make it all about them or anything, it's just, I think in the advertising of it, you've got, Taron Egerton was playing like the lead Gelfling character. You had Anya Taylor-Joy, who was playing like the other one, and then her name has escaped me, but she was in Game of Thrones. She played Daenerys's translator.
Yeah, I know who you mean.
She plays like the other character, and I was like, those are three really big characters, but also up and coming people. So rather than like focusing on the like Simon Pegg, like again, like all those people are invested anyway. You don't need to get like nerds involved in this. Like Simon Pegg's following his nerds; they're already invested. But Anna Taylor-Joy, Taron Egerton, there's loads of people who love those actors. And Taron Egerton was a massive fan of the original film, so I think they should have tapped into that more. And because again, when you do watch it, you realize how great those actors are and how great their voice work is. So again, I hope it's picked up by somewhere. And my biggest thing is I'm bringing that 4K version of Dark Crystal down to your house once lockdown's over.
Please do. I also think this speaks again to my further criticisms of Netflix, of this whole one weekend dump and run sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I think we've spoken about this before, but I prefer serial TV, each week looking forward to an episode. And I just find with Netflix a lot of the time, like, unless they heavily promote it, like a Stranger Things or like an Umbrella Academy, even still a Umbrella Academy to a point, no one's really talking about it anymore.
No.
If you just dump it on the weekend, you'll get a few hardcore people that will, binge the whole thing. But then other people will just watch a couple of episodes. But then you get everyone talking about it for that weekend, and then that's it. The talk about it dies off. And then you just don't keep audiences engaged. That's why, like I've said before, some of the best series are weekly. They give you 8, 10, or even some of them 20 episodes. And that's like 10 to 20 weeks of content, of story, just to keep you going hooked, and to talk about it with your friends, people at work. Shit, did you see this week's episode? Wow, what the fuck,
Yeah.
But you don't really get that with Netflix. You don't like. So this is just my criticism of the whole. I get it, it's sort of, I don't think they can sort of go back on it now, because that is become their staple, is the binge sort of thing. But I don't know. I just think it's at the minute causing them more harm than good.
Well, I just looked like quickly on my app at the trending section, and like you said, Umbrella Academy isn't there. And for a show that released like the end of July, okay, it is like 2 months or something, but still, as one of your biggest shows, and that's the problem with Netflix, things just, you're like, where's it gone? And the same with Dark Crystal, it just disappeared off the homepage, couldn't find it anyway. And then I'll be watching things, and, I don't know if you have this, but on my TV, when I like go away from Netflix for a while, it comes up with these like wallpaper kind of things, and they've got like little taglines underneath them saying like one of my friends was around the other day, and they laughed when Deadpool came up, and it said something like edgy, and like it's like phrase words. And I'm like, it's almost as if they put their Google Analytics on like the advertisement of the film. I'm like, you want to be putting like superhero, comedy. You don't want to be putting things like edgy, inspirational, because that's kind of like just keywords that you should be using for your analytics, not just on the front page. But like, I've been getting like, then at the end of things, they're like, oh, things we'll think you'll like. And it's like German and Norwegian fantasy series. I'm like, just because I watched Dark Crystal doesn't mean I'm like that invested in fantasy.
We think you'll like this.
Yeah, I'm gonna like, okay, yeah, I'm not saying that I'm against subtitled stuff, but it's like, is that how niche you think that the trend is? They're like, oh, we'll only aim Dark Crystal towards people who are also watching, subtitled fantasy series, etc. It's like that. it's that kind of thing that bugs me as well. And it's just also a throw it at the wall and see what sticks kind of thing as well, isn't it? It's just like
there's too much of that at Netflix, and I also think a lot of the content they produce is too algorithm based. I don't want to get too much into that, because that's a whole nother rabbit hole we could get down. Let's move on, shall we? So the Dark Crystal won't be returning, but you know who is getting a series?
Be like a douchey Captain America.
The guy who believes in peace at any cost, no matter how many people he needs to kill along the way.
Okay, I got it.
Peacemaker.
the series everyone asked for.
Oh my god, I couldn't believe this. Genuinely, I would never have predicted this.
No.
Like I just completely threw me off guard. I remember reading the headline and I just started laughing. I'd be like, what?
Yeah.
What the hell? So that's right, folks.
Well, is it called Peacemaker, or is it called Fuck It's Peacemaker or something like that?
Fuck It's Peacemaker.
Yeah.
So yes, folks, we're going to get John Cena's Peacemaker from James Gunn's new upcoming The Suicide Squad film. We'll be getting his own HBO Max series. The show there'll be 8 episodes, all written by creator James Gunn, and I believe he will also be directing a couple of the episodes as well. I remember seeing the talk on Twitter after this was announced, and James Gunn basically said, yeah, we were in lockdown, so I decided to write a TV show.
Yeah.
I mean, fair play. That's putting the hours to good work.
I got a bit bored of editing the Suicide Squad, so I just, made a spin-off of it.
I know. So, man, I'm going to ask your thoughts initially. Like, what the hell, man? And also, at the same time, this is fucking great.
Yeah. While I wouldn't have anticipated a series being made of it, I always did find it weird. Like, I don't know if we can go back to that fandom episode and maybe I would have said something, but I was surprised in that, like, highlight reel. I was like, why are they focusing so much on John? Because it was weird that they were like, they introduced all the characters and they were like, oh, we've got this character, Peacemaker. And then it went to John Cena talking about Peacemaker. I was like, why have you not done this for like Ratcatcher, Polka Dot Man? They didn't seem, it was only him that, and maybe like Harley Quinn that they seemed to focus on. And I was like, it's a bit weird. Why have they done that? I was like, oh, maybe he is that good in the film, or, it's John Cena, etc. But now it kind of makes sense. Like you said, it's, I wouldn't have expected it, but it does seem as if they were like early on being like, we're going to prep this guy for a series, because I imagine that it's kind of like, I don't know if you want to kind of call it like, kind of like the old days, but it does seem like when you did used to kind of like what they've done with the Batman, they've kind of gone, oh, we'll make a Gotham series, but that I think was a bit more like made sense. Whereas here, it does seem that they would like, executives or whoever's seen early cuts of the film and gone, that character is really cool. That character, like John Cena's really fun as this thing. Let's take a chance and make a series of it, rather than like, oh, let's wait for it to come out and then like let's just have a Harley Quinn show because everyone likes Harley Quinn. It's that like more risky direction which they're taking, which is what I appreciate most about it, and I think is the best thing for HBO Max to do. Because again, we just talked about how Netflix is failing at taking risks because they're not willing to give them multiple series to try it out. Well, that's where I think HBO Max could thrive, is series like that.
Yeah, HBO Max recently pulling out all the stops with some really good shows. I mean, HBO in general have always produced really good content.
Yeah.
And if they're going to bring that level of TV content to HBO Max, all the better for them. And I think this really shows the belief and faith in James Gunn and what he's doing with the Suicide Squad.
Yeah, it does make him a lot more of a DC guy now, which I think is interesting because he was so tied to Marvel.
And it's interesting because, he's always been very positive about his work with Marvel and the Guardians films, but I don't know, he seems just so excited and happy to be working on the Suicide Squad. All the interviews and all the tweets I've seen him sort of tweet out, he seems genuinely really gassed. And he said, and he's also said that it's been the most fun shoot he's ever had.
Yeah.
Margot Robbie's been the best actress he's ever worked with.
Yeah.
So, there's all these things. And John Cena is interesting because I'm not surprised that James Gunn has maybe found a character in this movie and gone, I really like this guy. Let's maybe tell a bit more of his story, of his before story. The only hesitation I have, and I'm still excited for the show, is in John Cena's acting capabilities. Now, I know as of recently he has been doing a couple more good films.
Yeah.
But it's more supporting roles or it's more sort of comedic relief sort of roles. I don't know. I mean, I could be proven completely wrong. You know, James Gunn's obviously he's got a better eye than I do. He knows what he's talking about. But I don't know if John Cena can carry a whole show, has that gravitas to lead a whole show. I don't know. I could be completely wrong.
I think
it's just one of my concerns.
Yeah, I have that concern as well, and I think I would agree more with you if I was seeing it as like, you know, John Cena is going to carry, you know, Fargo, as we were talking about earlier or something. But you would be like, oh god, you know. But to me, I think back to like Dave Bautista, where it's that typical thing, like you said, of taking a wrestler, turning them into an actor. And let's be fair, like, you know, when have we ever had like a wrestler win like an Oscar or something? So they all, you know, even Dwayne The Rock Johnson is still playing Dwayne The Rock Johnson. He's not like, you know, an award-winning actor by any means. So I think I see it as like, so where Dave Bautista works quite well, I think he has improved as he's gone along because, like you said, he's been, you know, in other things. But he got away with it with Drax because the way that Drax acts and speaks was kind of blocky and awkward anyway, because that's just the character, because he takes everything literally. So to me, that's why I imagine that this character is a bit like, I think it's kind of like James Gunn's approach to Drax is the same with this character. I think that he'll be so righteous or so over the top and stupid that it'll work for Cena's acting style. So I think they'll get away with it and it won't come across as like, oh, this is bad acting, because it's just a part of the character and a part of the performance.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because I was kind of thinking the same thing. You know, what James Gunn did was that, you know, and Dave Bautista says this, he's admitted it, you know, he's not the most versatile actor, you know. He's still learning, he's still relatively new in the acting business. So, you know, and James Gunn, but he saw the strengths that Bautista had.
Yeah.
And he focused on those. He focused on what he was good at and brought that really to the front.
Yeah.
And, you know, if he's done a similar thing with John Cena, then, you know, then I am looking forward to this.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, again, you gotta say that Warner Brothers, because this is the third spin-off show, because they've got the Batman with the Gotham series, this one, and they're also doing a Sisterhood series to accompany the Dune film.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So they're pulling out all the stops, and I think this is going to be the sort of the future in a way. This is the next step in our interconnected sort of universes where TV and movies is all going to merge.
Yeah, well, we were talking about that the other day, weren't we? Because I think a lot of people have said in their launch, obviously, they should have been more like had a Harry Potter series ready to go and that kind of stuff. So it is like they're playing catch up in that sense, that they're now getting the idea of like, oh yeah, we'll have these franchises and let's make these series to go along with them. But yeah, it's just too bad they didn't do that originally, because they do literally just need to have like Disney Plus, DC, Harry Potter, like these big staple things.
Looney Tunes, yeah, all the stuff.
Yeah, on their front page, etc. So, and I think
because franchises keep your streaming service alive. Yeah, you the new original content, that's great. But people won't watch that unless they have a franchise that they're attached to subscribe to that service, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and in a way, I think it also somewhat helps smaller films in cinemas, etc., because it just means that rather than the conversation being like, oh, well, everyone goes to streaming now, and that's the bigger thing. People only go to the cinema for the big movies. Well, actually, if streaming becomes a bit more of like companions to the big movies, then small films can still have their place at the cinema, etc. So I think that's... And like you said, the most interesting thing for me going forward is James Gunn's involvement in DC as a whole. I think once upon a time he looked like he was going to be like taking over for Joss Whedon and covering the cosmic side of the MCU. But like now, I think, and I would be happy with this, is just that he just bows out with Guardians 3 and we just have that nice trilogy there. Because I do think that his madcap kind of weird characters might not fit actually for the rest of the MCU. I was always worried if he did a Doctor Strange or something that he would not be quite the right fit for the rest of the MCU. Whereas I think the DC, like I said, you've got so many of these weird characters that he's already introducing, like the Suicide Squad, etc., that he does fit a bit more into that world as well. Yeah,
I mean, the Suicide Squad world in general, you know, he might just go around and be like, I want to do a, what was Idris Elba's character? Bloodshot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to do a series of him, or I want to do, it will never happen, but like Harley Quinn series. You never know. He could, so many characters that he's got there that he can just be like that one or that one. And a final word on this. I also think this gives us sort of a spoiler that I think Peacemaker will actually make it through the movie. I don't think you invest a whole TV show in a character that you kill in the first film we see him in.
Yeah, that's true. Well, it's also, I was going to say that because I heard prequel series thrown around, but I'm not sure
it's confirmed. James Gunn said it is a prequel.
Yes, but like you said, you still can't imagine that. Like, why would you have a prequel series? You know, it's like giving Slipknot a prequel series from the first Suicide Squad film. You'd be like, well, why? He just died.
What's the
like
point?
10 minutes in.
Yeah. There's no point. So I think he's making it out of this one.
Yeah, I think it might be surprising how many make it out, to be honest, because all of them seem like such great actors and characters. I think it'd be a shame to lose a lot.
You know what? I genuinely think most of them will go.
Yeah, that could
happen. I think maybe apart from like the really, obviously you're not going to kill Harley Quinn.
No.
I don't think you're killing John Cena. I don't think you kill Rick Flag because he's sort of again one of those anchors of the team.
Yeah.
And I don't think you kill Bloodshot because Idris Elba.
Yeah, I think the one that's what I liked about the team is that you have all these characters none of them seemed like in the first film just bait and, you know, just one of the extras to be one of the ones that dies. You don't want that. So if you have Pete Davidson as this character, you're like, oh my god, Pete Davidson's, and he just dies. You're like, oh, that's a shame. But it's not like you said with Slipknot or something where you're like, oh, well, that was obviously going to happen because he didn't say anything and he didn't look like that good a character. So
yeah.
So yeah,
we'll see.
Excited.
I think it's everyone's fair game in this film.
I've just got the image now of you saying that, like just Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn there at the end of this film with like a burning set piece behind them, and then she's like, "Did everyone die?" And then he just comes out, and she's like, "For God's sake, this asshole, this
douche, douchier Captain America."
Yeah.
All right, so we'll stay on DC, and we're gonna go to the the not so controversial Zack Snyder's Justice League, or the Snyder Cut, or whatever you want to call this cut. But this is also news that caught me off guard. I did not see coming. I never thought it would go down to this route. And that is, he's getting the gang back together to do some reshoots. And on top of that, these reshoots reportedly, not confirmed, but it's reportedly going to cost around $70 million to do.
Yeah.
Which is funny because that's more than a lot of films' whole budgets.
Well, that's a lot more than the 30 million that they originally announced as well. So where's this
just the visual effects and stuff like that.
Yeah, so where's this extra 40 million come from all of a sudden?
Yeah, I want to address that with this though. Like, I'm just so tired that whenever there's a bit of news regarding Zack Snyder or the Snyder Cut or anything like that, it just becomes a war out there on social media, and you know. And I don't know. I feel as if some people are just literally waiting for Zack Snyder to tweet something so they can go, you know. And then there's other people as well who are, you know, great, you know, Zack devotees that attack the other people, and it's just a huge war, and I'm kind of sick of it. But regarding the news itself, 70 million. Now I wouldn't have. Thought you needed that much for reshoots, so this leads me to believe he's gonna be doing some really, you know, really new stuff that wasn't maybe in the original cut. I think some brand new scenes that he's maybe worked on since getting the news. He's gonna do his cut and release it, you know. And a lot of people saying, "Oh, this goes to show there was never a cut,"
yeah, exactly.
And that he's doing new stuff. And I'm like, no. And again, I think people forget about the creative process of things. You know what I mean? If you had a project and you walked away from that project and you never got to finish it, right? If you came back to that project, you've got a new vision. You've done some other things. You know, you've taken some time. You're going to be thinking about, how can I make this even better than I envisioned before? And you know, if that means writing new scenes or writing new dialogue or doing some new action scenes, whatever, all the better for it, if you ask me. So I don't believe when people say he never had a cut. I think he did have a cut. I just think this is part of the creative process where I've got some new ideas, and they will fit into the story I was originally trying to tell to make it even better.
I think it's also the fact that, like we said before, alternate cuts are a thing. You know, you've got like Blade Runner famously having like the director's final cut, etc. When I was watching Alien the other day, I forgot that I was like, oh, director's cut. I didn't realize it was, but it's just like an extra minute or something, but or like different by a minute. But and the road cut as well is like the biggest one, but or one of the biggest in terms of like actually making the film quite different. So
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, so we're quite extended editions, so we're very used to like that being a thing already anyway. But it only does maybe add 10-20 minutes onto the film, and like you said before, just even if it is the exact same film style, the way things are played out, shots can just completely change the tone of a movie. And I'm surprised that there are not people on the other side. Well, okay, maybe I haven't looked enough into the Snyder fan side of things. Just because, like I said, I'm just happier not going down the rabbit hole of all these arguments, etc. But there is also the fact that you look at that Justice League cut and, you know, for example, the Flash falling into Wonder Woman's breasts and going, come on, guys, like, whether there was another cut or not, you can't deny that definitely wasn't in, you know, Zack Snyder's like original version, because like Wonder Woman isn't even looking at the screen, for God's sake, because it was a body double for Gal Gadot because she didn't want to do it, and so
but basically all the stuff was Superman because of the mustache.
Yeah, so you know we knew that they changed a lot from that as well anyway. So, you know, reshoots are a thing, but in order for reshoots to happen, there needs to be an original cut or like alternate versions of scenes. And yeah, I think like you, I think it makes sense. It does make me laugh in like a sense of like, maybe imagine Zack Snyder being like, yeah, there's Martian Manhunter, Green Lantern, and then like he's just like approved, you know, something, and he's like, oh crap, I've
actually got to do this.
Yeah, it's like, oh wow, I better actually make like a scene with him in, and he's not just flying in the background or something. But I just imagine him. I don't know if you've seen that Simpsons character, and he's like on the phone. He's like, "Oh crap! I should have said that it was illegal. Oh crap! I should have." But yeah, I think that people need to also accept that this has become a different format. You know, it's becoming like a series. You know, like so. That's the interesting thing as well. So I think again, regardless of whether like, oh, this goes to show there's another cut and everything, it's like, well, this has become a different thing altogether, and that's what's really interesting about it, is that if he's going to play it out in a different way and going to tell it in 4 parts or whatever it is, then of course, then like, yeah, I would be much happier with that, because I wouldn't want to be like swindled out of like, you know, 4 weeks worth of content, be there at the end of like, oh, well, there actually wasn't anything new there. So yeah, I think it makes perfect sense. I think it'll add to the project, and like you said, that maybe things that he wasn't originally allowed to do because of maybe budget constraints or running time
constraints.
Exactly. So, yeah, I think, like I said, I've gone board with the idea of like, yeah, this is his vision. However he wants to do it, you go for it, kind of thing. So, you know, I think the one thing I will say, and it's probably the last thing I'd say on it, is just, you were saying earlier about the people who get, you know, like, oh, you know, it sucks, you know, Zack Snyder, blah, 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 you know. And then you get the people on the other side who get like quite aggressive. I think the biggest thing for that, I was watching a video about a completely different scenario, but it applies to a lot of these things. And they said, even though we're pointing out this person is wrong or that they're doing these bad things, we still created them. Because if we hound them and attack them this much, they get defensive of that. So if somebody says that like, oh, Zack Snyder sucks, or I don't want to see the Snyder Cut because I didn't like Batman v Superman. If you then get those Snyder fans that all go, well, screw you, he's a visionary, he's a, you know, blah, blah, and you get attacked, that person's just going to get more defensive. They're going to be like, no, I hate Zack Snyder. You know, if they just went to them like, well, that's your opinion, but personally I really like it and I'm getting excited for it. But like I said, people then will get more heightened, their views will get stronger because there's, like you said, that literal war online. So I think, like I said, if people are sick of that, then just tone down the argumentative nature, because even though you might not be happy that they have those views, you can actually be perpetuating that yourself.
Yeah, and I've never seen why people, you know, choose to, you know, put people down on what they love.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like somebody shares a trailer or something saying, I can't wait for this. And then you get the comments of like, that film sucks, I'm not going to watch it. Well, what the fuck, man? Like, why are you commenting? And I don't care. Like, just let me enjoy this.
Yeah.
Like,
my biggest pet peeve is always like, that film is trash. That is a pile of shit. And I'm like, no, you can say I think that it's a pile of trash.
Yeah.
But like, you're not saying definitively it is trash. You're like, no, it is. And you're like, that just makes people angry at them because you're just stating that it is crap, not just
and
you think it's crap.
You got the other one. They don't understand the characters. No, it's just a different interpretation of the characters, you moron.
Yeah. Well, it's like we said when we were talking about like the films that critics didn't like that we do. We perfectly accept the flaws of those films. We're not making out that they're like Picassos. We just like the other elements that people don't so cling to as much as well. So I think people need to be a bit more like that as well. It's like, yeah, if you didn't like Batman v Superman, that's fine. But, personally, I just liked it because of these elements. So, that kind of thing as well. Whereas a lot of people will just be like, no, it's a perfect work of art. It's like, no.
You're like, no, go calm down. Calm down.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this conversation, I don't think it's going to end for a while. And even after the Snyder Cuts come out, this is just going to be kept on going talked about for a while. So
it'll be on Zack Snyder's gravestone.
Honestly, the Snyder Cut with the hashtag in there. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to actually, seeing what he does, especially with Ben Affleck. Because he, as we've said before, he was like, I'm out and I'm not doing any more. So the fact that he's coming back for the Flash, and I would imagine he's coming back for the reshoots of this. Cool.
Yeah,
cool. He seems to be doing in a better place for it. So
I've seen conflicting things with Henry Cavill though, because I think originally you said that he wasn't coming back, but then I've seen other things that say the Trinity are back, or like the all.
No, yeah, it's really confusing. I believe Collider had an interview with Henry Cavill, and the question came up.
Right.
But technically, that interview was done before this announcement.
Right. Okay.
So, and what a lot of people have rightly pointed out is that, Henry Cavill wouldn't break an NDA just for an interview.
No, exactly.
So, if he might have already known he was doing the reshoots, but he just can't say anything. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I think it's most interesting as well for Ezra Miller, because, we said in the fandom coverage, we were like, okay, yeah, they apparently are not covering off, like, the shady stuff that like people have sort of had issues with him about, and they didn't even like broach it or say anything about it, but like, yeah, they're going forward with him as the Flash. And I think that'll be what will be interesting as well, is to see whether this cut changes our mind on this, and whether him being at those reshoots, whether things will change as well as to the trajectory of the character. They might want to make it more fit in line with how he's going to be in the Flashpoint movie, etc. Maybe he'll like dye his hair blonde at the end to like please people or something.
Who knows? I mean, yeah, if you want to add more controversy, we've also got all the stuff with Ray Fisher.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is interesting because he has a team of people, having Warner Brothers investigated. Yeah, he's doing reshoots for them.
Yeah.
Like, for the same film he's complaining about on the previous reshoots.
Yeah, that is crazy.
So, man, this conversation is not over. I can tell you that.
No, definitely not.
Definitely not.
That would be the worst scenario, actually, is if just, obviously, Zack Snyder wouldn't do this because he said that Cyborg is at the heart of the story, etc. But if he was like, maybe I should put Green Lantern and Martian Manhunter in there, and Cyborg's more of an side character.
Yeah.
It's like,
see, I would even think that these reshoots would be primarily Cyborg. Possibly, I would say if anyone's going to get more new content, it's him.
Yeah, him and Aquaman, I think, would need it the most, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we'll stay on DC for the final bit of DC news, and that is the Black Adam has cast their Hawkman. We're going to be getting Aldous Hodge, who was... I only know him from this year's The Invisible Man. We played a supporting character.
Oh, yeah.
He was pretty good in that, but I am not familiar with any of his work. But a lot of people seem to be on board with this. Again, we're going for the race swap. So we're going for a black man playing this character, which, if you ask me, kind of makes more sense for the character of Hawkman, considering where he's based in Africa. So it does make total sense. I did enjoy him in Invisible Man, but I can't go much off to go with. But if he's gonna, he's got to bring his A game if he's going to be alongside DJ. So yeah, I mean, what do you think of this? Are you excited to see Hawkman? I mean, it sort of follows through on their promise that we're going to get the JLA.
Yeah,
with Dr. Fate and stuff like that. So I'll be really interested to see who they cast for Dr. Fate. But we got a Hawkman. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, like you said, I think there's certain character. Well, I think there's the argument that people could say that like any character can be race bended, and I think that's true to an extent, depending on like whether you're saying this is the definitive version. But I do think that like we've seen with like Heimdall and stuff in the Thor films, I think there are certain characters that you can easily race bend without it being a big issue, kind of thing. Where it's like nobody looks at that and goes no way, kind of thing, because it does make sense to the character, and it's a great way to get a more diverse cast in there without it being too on the nose and too in your face either, kind of thing. By saying we're taking this like really famous character and changing it, and then people sort of get annoyed, etc. So yeah, I think that I think that's a good choice. I think it also makes sense that you'll have like Dwayne Johnson in this film, so you've already got you're gonna have that diversity there from him, because he tends to sort of like keep it quite diverse cast anyway. Through like the Fast and Furious films, etc. And yeah, I think, while I still probably would have preferred like Hawkgirl, as I'm never a fan of like them being like a duo either. Like just the fact that like they're not good enough to like be their own characters. They have to kind of just turn up as like, the Wonder Twins or whatever. But I think, again, if you're going to do it, at least have just him or just her. So I think that works. And like I said, if it is going to be a big cast, then you might want to keep it limited. You might want to just have it be him, Dr. Fate, and was it Atom Smasher, was it? Oh, and there was like a fourth one.
Yeah, because they cast Atom Smasher, didn't they? They got that guy that was on the DC fandom with The Rock.
Yeah, and what was the female, like she, something to do with like element, she's like an elements or character, like something to do with wind, cyclone or something, or like something like
Cyclone.
Yeah,
Cyclone.
Has she been cast, or they just announced her as a character?
No, I don't think she's been cast. Okay. I haven't heard anything anyway.
But again, I can imagine that as a character working quite well. And like you said, if it is like going traditional with Dr. Fate, he's got like a helmet on his head. So again, you want that diversity, because you've already like covered up one character which you can't see. Unless they kind of want to go down again, like, no spoilers here, but the boys kind of, Homelander, like, well, Black Noir we don't know what race he is, But, yeah, I think it's a good choice. He looks right for the character. I've still got, like, my trepidations about, like, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and his, like, culty kind of atmosphere that he brings to, like, well, we said earlier about, like it's rumors and stuff, but like Tom Cruise, if he was in like a superhero film, etc. And I thought the same thing with him. I was like, I don't know, like I can accept Tom Cruise in a kind of, Mission Impossible, like, these big franchises, but coming into something which has already got an established cast, he's a bit too culty for me with that whole Scientology kind of stuff. So I'm always a bit wary of these like really intense celebrities taking on these big roles. And I'm always like,
yeah. I've had my thoughts about Tom Cruise, and I think the best way to utilize Tom Cruise as a superhero, if he wanted to, is the rumored have him as Hal Jordan. Now, I know a lot of people say his age, he's a bit too old for Hal Jordan, but I would say have him as like a mentor, and then introduce Jon Stewart as the new sort of younger Green Lantern.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that would work best if you wanted to have Tom Cruise in there. Somewhere.
Yeah. And like with the Birdman thing again, it's Hawkman. Hopefully that paves the way for a Jon Stewart Green Lantern as well in terms of that diversity. So yeah, I'm happy for it in that sense, and I think that it adds more legitimacy and like reason to be excited for this film rather than it just being the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson show kind of thing.
Yeah, it looks like they are trying to make this a DC film rather than a Rock film.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll look forward to see when that's going to come out, whenever it does. It's been rumored for like 10 years.
We'll just see if Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson adds him to his new fitness plan and like all that kind of stuff.
The Black Adam fitness plan.
Yeah.
So we're going to end the show with our last bit of news, and that is our favorite show at the minute, The Boys.
Ooh.
And its success has, like a lot of other things, spawned a spin-off show.
There seems to be a theme in this episode.
Yeah, a lot of spin-off shows happening. This one is going to be set in Soup College. Now, not soup as in the stuff you drink. If you're watching the show, we mean that's how superheroes are called. Yeah, the boys, I mean, we're going to take all this violence to university with this spin-off show.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. So we're getting one of the executive producers of the show is creating this, Craig Rosenberg. It doesn't have a title yet, but he said it's going to take place in a superhero university, which is run by Vought International, the big conglomerate in The Boys. And basically he's saying it's the students that will learn how to use their powers, compete in the best superhero gigs in the city, and get into all kinds of hormone adult drama. He's also quoted it as part college. Well, Amazon have phrased it as part college show, part Hunger Games, and it will just be mixed up with The Boys' style of violence, sexual taboos, and satire, and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
this is interesting because The Boys has got a certain type of audience that it attracts. So I'm wondering how that really graphic nature is going to be brought into a teen show, effectively. If it's going to be, young adult type of show, I could say, having them in university. But I think it could work. I think it has worked before, having rated R, teen-focused stuff. But I don't know if they want to go that route or if they maybe want to make it more accessible to younger audiences and maybe go a Riverdale route. I don't know if they would go that soap opera-y, but they might do an approach that's more accessible. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think of the news that they're doing this?
I don't know. My first reaction to it was it just made me think of, so as opposed to the Peacemaker kind of announcement where you're like, oh yeah, that sounds really cool, that makes sense. I think, to me, like, the things that work so well about The Boys, I can't really see like a spin-off in my head that seems clear. And if it was to be one, I don't think I would have gone with this because, I described it when the first season came out as like Watchmen meets Deadpool kind of thing. Is that, you got that political commentary, you got that like ultra violence and humor. So I just don't really see how you can pull that off in like another type of story, really. And especially if Vought is involved in like training up these superheroes, etc. Because I feel the show gives us enough of that. Like, hey, we're going to do an ad campaign with Starlight and, you're going to have a movie deal picture. That's all heavily in the show. It's not like you're like, oh, I don't get enough of that. It's quite a big part of the storyline. It's pretty much that and The Boys, the actual set of characters and bringing down the soups is the two big things. So, I don't know. It kind of reminds me of, and I don't know if, I'm pretty sure one of these come out and maybe I assume got cancelled. And I don't know if one was going to come out and never did. But I feel that Marvel and DC have both done these or at least talked about them. It was it like a response team series where they were like, oh, they clean up all the mess after the superheroes?
Was it like Damage Control or something?
Yeah,
like that?
That's it. Yeah. I don't know if they were doing one which was kind of like a tag on to like, was that DC or Marvel? I feel that there was something that was going to be tied.
Oh, yes. I think they had plans to do like a Damage Control. I think that was Marvel.
Yeah,
I think that's Marvel. Because I think Damage Control is owned by Tony Stark, I believe. I'm not 100%. Okay. I'm not 100% sure. I could be wrong.
I think they were going to tie it into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. The other one that was DC, I think it was called Power or something like that, where they were like an insurance company.
Yeah, and I think they've done something else recently, which is like it. Also a bit like, is it called Lower Decks, that Star Trek cartoon, which is like about the red shirts and stuff like that?
No, I'm not sure about that.
But that's actually come out anyway. I know that is a thing. I think it's on HBO Max, maybe like Netflix here, but that's about... And it's actually got Jack Quaid from The Boys, who voices one of the characters.
Oh, cool.
And the idea is, it's like the red shirts and the people you don't see behind the scenes. And it's all kind of Rick and Morty kind of humor. And I'm like, how many of these do we need? Because the joke works in like a series, but I just don't know about that concept of like, oh, well, what about these other people you don't see? And like, oh, the people behind the scene. I'm like, I don't really care about them, to be honest. I said that's the good thing about WandaVision and Peacemaker. These are big characters who are getting their own show, like Nick Fury, etc. Whereas I don't really care about like a group of 6 wannabe superheroes that, I think if they were going to do it, I think the way, like, one of the things I really enjoyed in season 1 was when you had, I can't remember his name, but Haley Joel Osment's character, when he had like that old 80s show where he's like the truth. You could tell when people were lying by touching them or something, or like sensing them. And they had that old like 80s cop show that like he made. I think that would be like a good series, not specifically him, but like the different heroes, about how they can be used in different television series and different like cult followings, how they can vary up. But if it is, like you said, just a Hunger Games thing of like, oh, this guy is just, you know, an archer and he's training to this girl can do that, she's invisible, blah blah blah, and blah. You know, and especially
it seems like a different show.
Yeah, knowing what we know about Vought as well, it's like you can't really sell us on the idea of like they're all invested in this, because we're like, well, we know what Vaught's true intentions are anyway. You know, you have that great line in like this season, which is like, you know, we're actually a pharmaceutical company. It's like, so if unless they play that into the show, I don't really see much of a draw there. As much as I love The Boys, I don't know. There's not much there for me from that synopsis that makes me go, ooh, yeah, I want to watch that. But like I said, maybe it's for a different audience.
I think, you know, I don't think by just slapping satire and blood and violence on it, it makes the show the same as The Boys.
No.
I also think what makes The Boys so good and why everyone is so drawn to it at the minute is the cast in it. You know, from both the ensemble of The Boys and all the soups, you know.
And the shocking nature of it. So, you know, again, if they're just replicating that, it's like it's not
exactly
original,
you know, because we're finding, you know, again, no spoilers, but we're finding all this really important information in The Boys at the minute. And if they're just going to play on that, it's like, well, there's not really anything new. Like, we already know this. We already know Vaught's intentions.
Yeah.
We already know that you know, these college kids will eventually be groomed by Vought and enter the Seven for a short period of time and whatever.
Exactly.
So I'm just a bit like, okay, like, I understand why Amazon would want to capitalize on the success of The Boys and do as much as possible, but I don't know if this is the right way to go.
Yeah, I would prefer it if they were adapting like some other like niche random comic book series kind of thing. But again, if they want just something that's maybe cheap that can go alongside it, again, maybe if they are going to go with the idea of like training up superheroes, like I was always, you know, the fact that they like, oh, this hero covers this city and this hero covers that city. I've always found that a bit like, that's a bit like on the nose, isn't it? Because, you know, like I said, usually in most comic book media, even though, like I said, Superman's like Metropolis, Spider-Man's New York, etc., they can still go other places kind of thing if they wanted to. So I've always found that didn't like stick to the traditions of superheroes to say that they're based in that one place. But I did find it interesting when was it Madeline Stillwell was talking to that governor saying, oh, well, if you do this, we'll give you whatever, Stormfront, you know, like we'll give you this hero in trade-off for this. So I thought that was interesting. If you kind of saw that like political nature of like, you know, using heroes as like leverage and bait as like, you know, oh, I've been signed to this city, and like why, you know, like they could uncover why they've been signed to that city, you know, find out, uncover that kind of stuff. But again, if it's more of a like bottle kind of series in which it's just all in this one location, I'm like, okay.
Yeah. We'll see, I guess. I mean, we do have Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg attached to it as executive producers, but then we know executive producer doesn't always mean everything.
Yeah, they signed a check one day.
Yeah, they were like, oh, why don't you put this there?
Yeah.
Great, cool, credit. So that's it, man. That is all the news that we have this week. And considering that there's no new films coming out, there's a lot of news going on.
Yeah, we've traveled through the multiverse of the different...
We have, and it's all it's all primarily on the small screens.
Yeah, makes sense. I think until, like you said, you get those big blockbusters, that's not until you're going to start seeing big movie headlines again, because we can't be talking about what's going to happen in 2023 until we still haven't had a film like Black Widow, can we? So
exactly. We need to sort our shit out first before we can start going to the cinema again.
Yeah.
So wear your goddamn mask, people. I want to go to a movie theater. I'm sorry.
Please forgive me.
But let's end the show then, as we usually do, with our plugs. So, Dave, where can the people find you and talk to you and get all your controversial opinions?
Yes, you can catch me on Twitter at David Osgar, that's Osgar, and you can also catch me writing on davidosgarwriting.wordpress.com and on freshtakehub.com as well. So hopefully some fun stuff coming up soon.
Everyone, plug Dave, get involved, get the conversation going. And if you want to have a conversation with me, you can find me on Twitter at SweatyJake and Capes, Cows and Mask. You can follow us on Twitter at Capes, Cows, Mask. And we're also on Facebook, so you can find and like us there. Give us a share to all your friends. Any share at all is incredibly appreciated. That's how we're going to get this show out there. Keep the conversation going. And if you like this episode, check out our previous episodes, which are all available on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, and a couple of other podcast stations where you can get all them from. But until the next show, guys, take it easy and stay safe.